And with us now is the Vice President of CBIA, the Connecticut Business and Industry Association, Chris Davis. And Chris, good to see you here on the program.
Thanks for having me, Dennis.
So what is the overall outlook for 2025? We had a pretty good year, people say, economically in 2024, but what about this year?
We did. We're optimistic heading into 2025. We see real opportunity for job growth here in Connecticut. I mean, we're a little bit slow across the nation. We're 46 in the last jobs report of job growth. And part of that is due to the lack of labor force here in Connecticut. We've actually seen a reduction in labor force since COVID hit here in Connecticut, but we're optimistic that through different policies that we can implement, we can get that job growth that's necessary to fill those many jobs that employers have across the state.
Explain that to me. So there are fewer workers out there available for jobs?
That's exactly right. So right now, after COVID, less people are looking for work than they were previously. So the labor force has actually shrunk since COVID hit. But what we see is that a lot of job openings still exist across Connecticut. The last jobs report showed that 73,000 jobs are open in Connecticut.
Wow. In what sectors?
Across the board. It's not just industry specific. So we have a lot of openings in healthcare, a lot of openings in manufacturing, a lot of openings in retail. It's across the board, across all industry sectors here in Connecticut that have job openings. It's just a matter of finding the people to fill those jobs.
Yeah, we've talked to mayors and police chiefs who say they have trouble filling their jobs. They have all these open police jobs all across the state and with companies as well. Where do you see the big growth sectors in our state?
So we have bioscience right here in the New Haven area. We have a number of job openings across manufacturing, which is really growing, especially with the defense contract work that we're getting at Electric Boat and Sikorsky and at Pratt & Whitney. You also have healthcare being a big driving force of growth here in Connecticut as well. So it's really across the industry sectors that you have the opportunity for job growth. Is just finding those individuals to fill those jobs, which are the policy solutions that we're pushing for at CBIA.
And are there sectors you see that may decline this year?
Well, financial services has not rebounded as strongly coming out of COVID as all the other industries. We've seen about 100% of the jobs be regrown here in Connecticut since COVID hit, but financial services has been the one that's been kind of behind about trying to match up to where we were before COVID hit.
I get more complaints from people who say, why aren't people coming back to work in the office, particularly state workers? They're like, we're paying their salaries, we're paying for their newly renovated buildings, why aren't they here?
And it would have a huge impact, especially on our inner cities, if individuals come back in. We see that near our offices in downtown Hartford, that just having more people in the cities in that urban core can lead to greater job growth across all industry sectors as well. So we're really encouraging state employees to come back in. I know there's some issues with the arbitration case that they had with the unions to make that happen, but we're also seeing our private sector employers that are members of CBIA calling their employees back in and having that urban core come back to life.
Yeah, you know, in so many ways, Hartford seems so much busier, downtown Hartford, as you walk around, because there are more restaurants, there are more people living there, all these apartments. But you're right, it would help if all these other people were back as well.
Yeah, it's key to have an all-day situation in our cities. We can't just have it go 9 to 5 when individuals are in the city and then they leave to go home. We need that vibrancy. So that adding those apartments that Hartford has seen, New Haven has seen, Stamford has seen, has really added to that vibrancy, but there's a long way that we can go. And we have a set of strong mayors across the state that are making those investments, that are doing the right things in our cities to try to grow that population there. It's important that we support them with the jobs that are necessary in order to attract those young people into the cities.
How is the tax situation in Connecticut impacting people?
Well, the cost of living in Connecticut is very expensive.
Sure.
And not just for residents, but also for businesses here in Connecticut. And then you couple that with the cost of energy, the cost of healthcare. It makes it a very expensive state to live in, which is why we've had our Opportunity Connecticut long-term economic plan trying to address these issues, trying to lower those costs of doing business here in Connecticut, and also lowering the taxes in order to try to spur that economic growth.
Let's talk a little bit about cannabis, because it's a relatively new industry, but it appears to be growing. And I was talking to someone recently who said they don't want it legalized nationally because that would change everything. Right now, everything that's sold in these dispensaries has to be made, grown, produced in Connecticut, and that would change, obviously.
Yes, Connecticut has a very robust regulatory system that they put into place when legalization of adult use cannabis came into effect just a couple of years ago. So you have seen growth in that. You see a number of individuals opening up businesses, entrepreneurs that perhaps were not entrepreneurs before that legalization have really been able to take advantage and really create jobs within their community.
You see them in other cities and towns. Did Hartford kind of missed the boat a little bit with the cannabis industry because there are a few in West Hartford, but you don't really see any in the city, right?
There's a couple. There's one that's opening up actually right near Dunkin' Donuts Park.
Oh, there is. Okay,
just recently.
good.
So,
Okay.
you know, the city of Hartford is taking a cautious approach. Understandably so. This is still a drug that we're talking about. It needs to be, you know, regulated and used only by adults in appropriate situations. But you don't
want to see them lose out to other cities and towns as well, where everyone else has it, right?
Yeah, and we want to make sure that, you know, the jobs that are created by those are jobs that are available for people across the state. So whether they're in a small town that opens up a dispensary or in the city of Hartford, you know, part of the reason why they had this legalization is to create those types of jobs.
Where do you see as, I know they're building a lot of apartments, office space, where does that stand right now in our state?
Office space, it's rebounding slightly. We're seeing a little bit of growth there, just as far as bringing people back into the office space. You see a lot of businesses downsizing their previous office space into new locations. We've seen that across Hartford and New Haven, Stamford, Bridgeport, and others where businesses are maybe reevaluating how much office space they need and then maybe sizing up into a different building or somewhere else. So you see some growth. You see commercial real estate having some rebound, but there's a long way to go there as well, just getting more and more people back into the office.
So in a nutshell, there are reasons to be positive for 2025.
We're positive, but there's also things that need to be done in order to get that job growth that we need here in Connecticut.
Good enough. All right, Chris Davis from CBIA. We appreciate you being on the program today. Happy New Year.
Always a pleasure.